Hi guys, hi Spartans. Today we are talking about the London South East Spartan event, which is coming this weekend. It's also useful for those that are looking back and just want an idea what to expect from this particular venue. It's a bit of a preview, not a review. However, I have been to this particular event before, so I have some insider knowledge. Though each time you go, each event is subtly different to the last. So today I will be previewing the course that is at the Pippingford estate. Now this is the London South East, so it sits just down below London. It's about 3 hours from the Midlands, where I'll be attending from. Allow extra time, as it doesn't mean a little bit of commuting the M25 on a Friday, which is always a hoot. Like I said, I've been here before a few years ago, and it has a little bit of a special place in my heart, as it was the first ever Spartan trifecta that I was signed up to do. Now, Pippingford Park is basically 1,000 acres of estate, and it takes in some of the Ashdown Forest, which is over to one side. But it isn't all woodland, it isn't all forest. It has sprawling sort of scrubland, sort of heathland, that's like covered in bracken and sort of like old Christmas trees, that kind of vibe. And it's a completely varied terrain. It's got lots of gradient, lots of hillside, quite good running terrain, assuming that it isn't peeing it down. Looking at the forecast, we do have in fact good weather for this particular weekend. If you're watching this a year down the line, you might not be so lucky. Last year's one was in torrential rain, I believe. Now, if you have seen the map, they put out, you will see that this is quite a convoluted map, and that would be true on just about any of the races that are going to be held at Pippingford, and that's because they've got kind of a finite amount of distance they really want to put you out. They do put you out quite deep on the beast, and then obviously less for super and less for sprint. And in those instances, they put the sort of more exotic, sort of less popular, less well-known obstacles at the back, so they only feature in the one race, and they sort of consolidate that down until it's the main staples for the event: the hoist, the rope that carries, the spear, all the things that you are very familiar with. They'll all feature in the sprint. Now, I mentioned that this was a very varied terrain event, and that be true. Let me divulge you in some of that information. Hillsides, it's got a gradient, it's got in excess of 1,700 feet of ups and downs, so just bear that in mind. They do utilise the one big hill out the back of the estate many times, so you'll be going down it, you'll be coming back up it, and it feels very frustrating at times, but it's how they add that challenge to the equation. I mean, running is as big a challenge as any of the obstacles. In fact, it is the biggest challenge. And remember, these are Spartan miles as well, so don't expect to finish the beast at 13 miles. Expect it to go north of 14. Easy peasy. In addition to the gradient, this one is considered the wet one. Now, while there is mud and water in lots of the other Spartan races throughout the year, this one is the one that is definitely considered the one that where there is more water to cross than the others. This comes in the form of a sort of a stream that you have to cross right sort of toward the beginning before you sort of head up out to the back of the estate, and at the top there is at least one, possibly two lake style water crosses. Now, depending on how much rain will depend on whether it be a swim or a wade. From memory, I could touch the bottom all the way across, just, albeit silty bottomed, but we have had a really wet summer, so I suspect with an extra foot or two of water in those particular lakes or ponds, that will probably take my feet off the bottom and it'll have to become a swim. Now, just bear in mind that if you are in the elites or the age groups, they are compulsory. You cannot go around them. And if you're in the opens, that's completely fine. There's lots of non-swimmers that sign up to those sorts of things, but swimming is part of it if it's an obstacle in front of you. So what can we expect in terms of obstacles from the course? Now, without a doubt, we will see a whole host of Spartan staple obstacles, things including the spear, the atlas carry, the hoist, the A-frame, the rope climb. All of that will feature heavily, and they will feature toward probably the end of the event. So they sort of cluster up to be included in the last 5k, which is the sprint, or the last 10k, which is the super. leaving only that, like I mentioned earlier, the more exotic obstacles up in the far-flung corners of the Beast course. Now, with the introduction of the Southwest course in Gloucester, it was advertised as having a obstacle resequencing, right? Now, I suspect what that meant for that particular venue is that they just put the obstacles where they were suited, characteristically out of order from the other established venues. Now, Pippingford is already established, and they will already know where the obstacles go, like where they're suited, like the terrain and the gradient, what obstacles suit what terrain. So what I imagine might happen is we see obstacles appearing where they've previously appeared. They've not said obstacle resequencing in any of the media that they've sent out, in the emails or the correspondence. They've not put anything like that. So I suspect we may see sort of a copy and paste job from a previous event. Now, in the last 2 Spartan outings, I have seen them start to get a little bit inventive with their obstacles. Now, by this I mean they've started to take 2 obstacles that would ordinarily be just on the course by themselves and smoosh them together to make a sort of hybrid. Now, at Midlands, this came in the form of a sandbag carry under the cargo nets. It was tough, and just when you think that they may regurgitate that in the next Spartan race, they added something different in that one, and that was the bucket carry into hoist, whereby you would carry the bucket, do your hoist, carry on with your bucket. Now, looking at the correspondence that has been put out for this particular event, it's looking like the bucket will feature again, but this time it will be carrying over things. Most likely this will mean carrying over things like hay bales, things like that. How this actually manifests on the day, how far you have to go, how high you have to climb, we just don't know yet. Now, the established pattern within sort of the Spartan race, how they lay out their obstacles, it's generally the same each time. They add the overs, unders and throughs right at the beginning in the event village, so when people sprint off, they are forced into this particular obstacle, and this serves to start to spread people out a little bit. Add a little bit of running, natural ability will add people sort of spreading out, add a few walls in there, and before you know it, all the bottlenecking, as you know it, certainly in the age groups where there's much less people, the bottlenecking becomes much less, allowing for a much fairer race. Now, you may still get this in the opens because there's significantly more people, the waves are just pouring down the course, but with regards to the elites and the sort of the age group, certainly where competitiveness is paramount and racing is key, this bottlenecking is reduced by having these obstacles at the beginning. This event, we already know through pictures that have been released on social media that this event will see the return of the Tyrolean Traverse. Now, this was absent at the Gloucester event, and I was a bit gutted because I'd wrapped something around one of my ankles so that I wouldn't get rope burn on my Achilles like I always seem to, so I ran around 14 miles with this thing on my leg for no reason. But I've seen pictures of it at Pippingford. It is my guess that it will appear at the top of the hill. I may be wrong. If they've relocated it to somewhere else, so be it. That's quite likely as well. The rig. Now, the rig has featured all the way through this season and is a bit of a bugbear of mine, and I'm afraid it features in this one too. It sits right there between you and the finish line. Right? You've just got that to do before you can go over the fire log. And it is notoriously difficult. Now, looking at it, it goes, you sort of swing out with rings onto a bar, and then I think it goes rope, ring, rope, and it's normally the last rope that gets people. It's got me every single time this season. I try and get some good swing. It's a little bit too low to the ground, so I have to hold my knees up. And it really does favour the people that have low body weight, high grip strength. With regards to the penalties, now, there was quite a lot of success at Gloucester after they had overhauled the penalty situation. Now, they had been criticised that the penalties were less in how much time they took than the actual obstacles, so people were bypassing the obstacles in favour of taking the penalty. But when they got to Gloucester, everything changed. It all changed. suddenly the penalties, certainly the runs, were twice as long as they'd ever been. So we are talking 400-meter runs. Now I had to do 3, and they felt like they went on forever. But it was important that this be addressed in the spirit of competitiveness. No one should be taking the penalty because it's less than the obstacle. It's just unfair. So by addressing it, they've sort of rebalanced the scales. People will try harder to get through the obstacle. For example, like I had tried, I always seem to come unstuck on Everest. It's just one of those things that doesn't seem to suit me. I don't like holding the chain, I don't like putting my hands in the holes, and there doesn't seem to be enough climbing grips. So yeah, I always seem to come unstuck. But yeah, inevitably, rather than get 2 or 3 meters more across this obstacle, I then had to run 400 meters, sort of 200 out, 200 back along this ridiculous penalty loop. Yeah, it's absolutely fair, it's absolutely right, it's exactly how it should be. It just stings when you're against the clock and you're in these bloody penalty loops. But they don't just come in penalty loops. There's obviously a whole myriad of carries and things to climb over and crawl under, and then sort of mishmash them together to make the obstacle, the penalties much more time consuming than it is to complete the obstacle. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning, this particular location has a really great and sort of special place in my heart, because this is where my Spartan sort of journey started, and it sent me on this wild adventure. I started off in the opens, I'm now in the age groups, I'm booked in for next year, and it's a really, really, really cracking location. So just make sure when you get there, if you see me, just tap me on the shoulder, say hi. I'll be going off in about the 8:30s, 8:40s in the morning in the age groups, and I'll be there sort of around lunchtime to cheer other people on as well. And I do hope you appreciate me making these videos, because I just like making them, and I would appreciate if you give the channel a subscribe. There will be a race day video to come after this. This is just a little sneak peek into what to expect on the course when you get there. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Martat.